Okay, so I'm gonna hop right back in. Today, I wanted to talk about the effects of social media and particularly the role of influencers and memes and things like that, and just about how that's kind of affected people's perceptions of reality and perceptions of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate when it comes to dealing with other human beings in real life. You know, I was having this conversation with one of my fake friends, and we were talking about well, not fake friend, let's just say acquaintance. That sounds so petty. And not only that, but I consider this person to actually be cool. The only issue is they've shown me who they are. They've shown me that they can that yeah. Anyways, so I was having this conversation and we were talking about how, you know, um, basically me, like when this all started happening, when I was 20, 21 years old, you know, I I had come to the realization that you know, I was dealing with people who, for whatever their reasons are, um, were really obsessed with me. And they felt entitled to information about me in every single shape, way, and form. Um, and it's just unfortunately, they you know they felt entitled to me, and information about me and details about my life and things like that, um, and they felt offended when I realized that they were quoting me and things about me from my journals. Now, the reason and they were offended at me being offended about that is because of the fact that I was relatable. And I want to talk about that. I was very relatable. I was saying things that they experienced themselves, they felt themselves, they had thought themselves, at some point in time or another. I don't have a monopoly on, a lot of the things I wrote about. Matter of fact, it was a reading of their books that kind of gave me the topics I wanted to discuss, and with my own little spins and things like that, because I would write about a whole bunch of stuff. But and when my journals got out, of course there were those people who just were like, you're all right, kid. You're all right, kid. Um, you know, but but here's the thing though. I don't owe anyone well, let's not get the court I mean the horse of ahead of the carriage. Um so yeah, I made a lot of my own personal writings. I wouldn't call it content because content is made with the purpose of being viewed and making impressions on the public. My journal writings were private; they were not meant for the public, but my family decided to make them for the public. Um, and ultimately, once again, these people they were just being very it's almost as if they were trying to get me to believe in this idea of an all-seeing God that was going to punish me if I did something wrong or reward me if I did something right. And they wanted me to believe in that because, first of all, I was an atheist. And a lot of people have issues with atheism. A lot of people have issues with people that lack a belief in a God or a deity or things like that. Like it's really personally offensive. Like saying you're an atheist, especially in a household full of believers, that's like saying you're gay. Like matter of fact, I think that saying you're gay nowadays probably offends your family less than saying you're, well, let's just, I don't even want to play Olympics, the oppression Olympics, but it's on par with saying you're gay or something like that. Like your family could disown you for that. Like I've had extremely large arguments with my family when I started thinking for myself and saying, I don't believe that the Bible is the inspired word of God. I don't, I just thought that it was just. That's all I said. I didn't even say I didn't believe in God. I just said I don't like the Bible. I don't believe it's God made. And that led to huge arguments and things like that. But to keep on topic, So yeah, I was writing about a lot of stuff that people outside of my family could relate to. Lots of people could relate to. Not only that, but I was just this young girl who seemed very what's the word I'm looking for? Self-aware and very aware of my surroundings and very aware of the society that I lived in. And for a lot of old people who have already lived their lives and have nothing going on, something like this is like gold. Like this is like a people love drama, people love mess, and basically finding a young girl's diary, that was like the oh my gosh, it was like just the highlight of their fucking old ass lives, even for a lot of younger people, it was a highlight for them too, because it was just like, oh, I finally have information on the girl that I don't have any information on. And people love that sort of shit, you know and it kind of just ties once again back into basically my journals that were meant to be private became content for the public. And with content, people either like it or they don't like it, either, this or that. You get a whole bunch of mixed reviews. Now, a lot of people like they actually related to the things I had written about because, either they thought about it themselves or, yeah, it's just when something's relatable, people see themselves in it for whatever their reasons are. Um, so that whole thing happened. And in addition to that, basically, with the age of social media, people don't know. Once again, this goes back to that boundaries thing. People thought that just because they could relate to the things that I had written, they could relate to me. They thought that just because, yeah, sure, they thought the same things as me. That, coming up to me and, quoting verbatim, something that I had written or, just trying to force all of these, man-made synchronicities, trying to force that whole thing. They didn't think anything of it because, first of all, them quoting me, it's not like they're actually quoting me. Like they thought them things themselves too. Like all they're doing is just saying just saying the same thing I've said because they've had the same thoughts. So they didn't see anything wrong with but just mimicking me from my journals and things like that. Um, and then the fact that I recognized what was going on and I felt offended by them, that made them feel offended. And they were just like, hold on, like I can I relate to you because I've had the same thoughts. You being offended at me saying the same thing as you, like, that's kind of weird because I have these same thoughts. You don't have a monopoly on this. What are you? You're the weird one here. Blah, 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 blah. How is this harassment? How is this? How is this that? All I'm doing is just, saying that, it's just this whole little back and forth thing. And and the most disgusting part about it is them knowing that they're quoting me or that they're trying to, them knowing that they're quoting me and then me recognizing what's going on. And instead of just going, oh, she recognizes it, one guy did that and I really appreciated it. Oh, she recognizes what's happening. Let me just step back. Instead, these disgusting people, which is so weird. Like, I don't understand why people have such an issue with respecting boundaries. But these other weird people were like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm going to lay on this even harder. And that's what majority of I wouldn't say majority, but, there's always that loud minority. It's always the people that are, so fucking, it's always the losers, it's always the losers. It's always the average people, not average, the most, the common people, they just, and once again, this also ties back into that thing that I was talking about in the previous video about people who kind of, at some point, either early on in life, or, now or later, they just sold their soul for something, or they lost something in themselves for the world. And they see me and I still have that something, and they're just like, oh girl, just get rid of it already. Like, stop, it's whatever, calm down. Like, we all, have these moments. We all have XYZ. And this is the reason why they feel the need to keep, putting me through this, that, and the third, because they think that I, for some reason, haven't experienced something to, have lost whatever it is that they've lost. And sure, that's that, but you don't get to try and force that away from me. It's kind of like when you're younger and virginity is like this really big thing. And to be an older woman listening to a woman saying, oh, I'm still a virgin. I want to save myself. There's always those women that'll sit there and side eye, like even me at some point, but I don't really care anymore. Because of the whole patriarchal thing aspect of it, not because, I feel like she's a virtue. Well, yeah, in a way, but it was for virtue. It was for feminist reasons, not because I felt like she was saying she's better than me or she was saying, but there's those girls who, when, once again, it comes back to the whole boundaries thing. And I mean, the whole feeling threatened by someone else's standards of living thing. There's always those women who, when they are, I remember one time I was talking to this one girl, and she was talking about how this one girl is a hoe because she's had sex with this person and that person. And I'm just like, you can sit there and shame that woman for having sex, but, and this was at the time I hadn't had sex yet. And I was like, well, I'm a virgin and you've had sex. So does that make you a whore? Like, does that make me better than you? Like, putting a woman's worth in her, a sexual organ, like that's kind of, don't get me wrong. There's definitely codes of conduct to, sexual activity. There's just definitely things that, it's kind of like they're faux pas. It's like dining, when you're dining in a certain restaurant, you want to follow certain rules. When you're dining at certain places, they have certain dress codes, and being outside of the dress code is just kind of weird. And part of growing up is just learning about what those social faux pas are. A girl at 19 doing this and that, or a girl at 21 doing this and that, and then growing out of it, that's completely normal and fine. And I think that, this society trying to shame young people for exploring sex and sexuality is just so fucking gross. It's just nothing but, once again, people being involved in stuff they really just don't have. It's none of their business. It's really none of their business, especially if they are an adult and you are not the person, and you are not the parent and you are not the person engaged in the sexual act, like you really don't, you just don't have, it's just none of your business. And by adult, I mean 21 plus, because at 18 and 19 and 20, you're still, it's really gross when those grown ass men prey on these barely legal girls or just legal girls. Like, it's just so gross as fuck. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, where yeah, it's just where yeah, it's just hold on. But yeah, this is just yeah. So yeah, those guys who prey on those young girls, it's gross as fuck. And yeah, the youth should be allowed to explore how they want to, and then learn the social graces that come with certain things. As you get older, you just learn and you adapt to situations better, and that just is what it is. And I just feel like people are they just do way too much with the youth sometimes. But it once again goes back to that topic of power and control. It once again goes back to older people who feel like they've lived life, and there are things that if they could just go back in time and do shit X, Y, and Z way, that would have changed the course of their entire life. And they look at your young ass and they're just like, damn it, do what I say, do it how I say it, and do it when I say it. Because then you could avoid whatever it is that I feel regret for, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, look, that's your life. You have everyone has their own personal regrets. And regrets are are very just very personal. They are tailored to the individual. There are certain things, like, so for some people, never being married is like one of their biggest fears, or biggest, like, if they never found love, that would ruin their life. And then there are some people who, they have those same fears, but being with the wrong person for their entire life is their biggest fear. And everyone has those, not everyone, but majority of people, I say everyone, has those two fears: never finding love and being with the wrong person for the rest of their life. But there are certain people who place one thing on a higher than the other. Like, for instance, for some people, they would rather, if they had to choose between living alone or being with the wrong person for the rest of their life, they would pick being with the wrong person for the rest of their life. And then there are others who, if they had to choose between those two, they would pick being alone for the rest of their life, because the other choice would just be, it would just be far worse to them than for the other person. And you just have to decide what your threshold is. That's what it all comes down to. And this is the reason why people who are in miserable relationships can't really, they think that people who are single are miserable, and people who are, single and actually happy, like, they just really think that people in those miserable relationships are so fucking miserable. But in reality, they're less miserable than you think, because this being with someone that they really don't love is just far better than being alone to them. And that's just, everyone has their separate thresholds. So you just have to decide for you what's your threshold, what you can handle. And that's just something that a lot of, people just struggle with. They really struggle with allowing other people, especially of the youth, to live their fucking lives and how they choose. Of course, all within reason. But back to this whole topic of how social media and meme culture has kind of, it's just kind of altered the way the population views boundaries and views appropriate interaction with other human beings. And it's really weird because, as someone who spent a lot of her time, especially in your youth, on the internet, you would think I'm the one that has the issues with social boundaries and with understanding and how to respect. Like, everyone always talks about, like, gamers and internet folks being, like, socially awkward, but I'm the least socially awkward person I know. Like, it's fucking, like, it's just outstanding to me just how people just lack the social graces. Like, I don't get it. Maybe it's because I grew up down south and the social relations are extremely important, and I spent a lot of my formative years in the South in learning about respect and learning about, these different things, and my abuse and stuff like that. It was at its peaks in the cities, like city areas. Like, people, I've already said this before, I fucking hate the city. City people are so fucking detached from, like, they're just very detached. There's something about city dwellers that is just different from people who have gotten the opportunity to either grow up in a more intimate and close environments, or environments that where we're just socializing is extremely important. And city kids are very, like, they always want to stay inside all day long. They don't got shit they want to do. They're just weird. They're really weird. And that weirdness was rubbing off on me, but thank God I've been able to, get through a lot of that. But unfortunately, this whole thing had to happen. But yeah, so with me, so with this whole social media thing, I was talking with this one girl about how in this day and age, you could literally become an internet icon, or, and I saw a post about this too. You could become an internet icon or a meme or famous for something, accidentally famous. And you will have no say-so in the matter at all. Like, there's literally an entire YouTube channel dedicated to I accidentally became a meme. And it's like, don't get me wrong. A lot of people, they take that fame and they just, like, they love it, or they, they just live with it. They don't really, a lot of the people on there, they act like it's not really that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, there are some instances where people are, really offended by it, or they don't want that to be, or they just don't want that to be, they don't want to be associated with whatever it is that was going on. Like there was this one time, this one famous YouTuber or whatever who was anonymous, and they were all trying to, someone's speculating that, oh, the person doing these voiceovers who has a really attractive avatar, they actually look like this, and people were literally clowning this fat individual who looked, just like a average fat kid. And then it came out that wasn't even the streamer. And it's just, they were really basically just this one kid literally got clowned by the internet just for the way he looks, because they thought he was this one streamer. So you have two things going on. One, you have the streamer probably more afraid to ever reveal their true face, because if they do, they risk being completely dogged out by random strangers, and facing this really just reading really extremely ugly and hateful things about you just because of the way you look. And then there's a kid who had absolutely no idea who this streamer isn't related in any way, but his image is just being used as a way to, without his consent, as just as cannon fodder. Like it's just gross on both ends. And yeah, in this age, like you can literally become an icon for something. You can become a sex icon. You can become a, icon for this or that. Whatever people decide, whatever people project onto you, you can become an icon for that without even knowing about it. And these people expect you to be happy about it. Like they expect you to love it. They expect you to take it on the chin, like to just be cool with it. And it's just like, no. Like social media has literally made it so that people really don't understand boundaries anymore. Like people seriously feel entitled to your personal life. They feel entitled to your time. They feel entitled to all of that shit. Really personal stuff, just because they relate to you, or just because you're a meme to them now, or just because you're whatever they've projected onto you. And as someone who has been scouted before and has done the whole little, I was in LA for a bit, and I was doing theater. I was a theater kid, and I got scouted before, but I turned that shit down. And it's because being in theater kind of depressed me. Actually, it was just very it was actually probably a lot of things going on in my life at that time that was but being in theater just didn't help. And it was just very, I don't know, there was something about memorizing lines and just acting. Like it was fun, but it got, I don't know, just basing my life around that just seemed so empty. And not only that, but the type of people attracted to that field, it's very yeah, it's nasty. Like I didn't want to associate myself with the kind of people that wanted to be in film, because they sit there and for the camera they'll show you this really friendly, egregious, wonderful personality, but in reality they're just not. Yeah, no, I don't want to associate myself with that type of crowd anyway. No matter what the income was, I just had an idea of what I valued, an idea of what I wanted out of life, and that's what I've been going after. But yeah, but we live in a world where people, honestly, they don't believe that it's possible that someone would actually want to live a private life where everyone doesn't have access to their private information, or access to them, or all that other shit. Like the idea of wanting to be anonymous is weird to people. Like who doesn't want to be famous? Who doesn't want to be, relatable to half the population? Like who doesn't want to be Keanu Reeves? And I can tell you right now, I don't want to be Keanu Reeves. Like it's just, yeah, in this day and age, we just live in a time where people just honestly can't respect boundaries. They don't have an idea of what respecting boundaries looks like. And not only that, but they get offended at the fact that you would even suggest that they do respect your boundaries, because they think it's just ridiculous, that you would dare not want to. How dare you not want to relate to me right now? How dare you not want to talk to me? How dare you not want to be my friend? Like that's kind of what it is. And it's just like, look, I've always said this, because I've had these instances where these guys will come on way too strong. Like, I mean, in ways I had never seen in my life before. And sitting there trying to be these perfect guys for me and stuff like that. And I want to take my time, and they're like really upset about the fact that their love bombing isn't working on me. And it's just like, baby, look, you know me. I don't know you. Like, like it's just, this is what being gang stalked is like. It's like being a celebrity, but with none of the benefits. You don't have security. You don't have the income to get away from these, or to, seclude yourself in a nice, fancy mansion or whatever. You just don't have you just don't have any of the benefits that come with being a celebrity. You just don't. You have all of the negatives. You deal with all of the hate mail. You deal with all of the haters, and you don't have any of the, celebrity income. And that's just what your life is, because your supporters are very quiet. Your supporters are just very, they're good. They're good natured. They're just chilling. But your haters, they are agitated as fuck, and you're looking for any reason. I mean, any reason to, to go off on you because you said something that they don't like, and they think that you're somehow responsible for how they feel because you said something that they don't like. And it's like, look, bitch, you don't even know me, first of all, and secondly, and yeah, it's just this weird thing. Now, gang stalking by nature is the highest form of boundary bullying, because what happened to me wasn't just my journals getting out and people quoting my journals and my diaries and things like that. Like if you've ever watched the show Awkward, in it, on the show, Jenna, the main character, and I actually went through like my life literally kind of like followed hers in a bit. When her personal online diary got published and things like that, what happened was, first she got a whole bunch of backlash, and then people started using her terminology, her lingo, started quoting her, started coming to her for advice and things like that's kind of just what followed me. First, I got a bunch of backlash and people trying to, emotionally and psychologically manipulate me. And then I started having people using my lingo. I started having people, coming to me and, being like fans or whatever. I just had all of this. Covert fans, of course. Everything is done covertly. I've just had all of this kind of just going on. And then, just like how Jenna found out that, in the show, someone wrote her a letter saying, "I hate you and I wish you never existed." And she wound up finding out later that it wasn't a friend. It wasn't, this, that, or third. It was her mother. Her mother had written that note to her. And Jenna, of course, was, heartbroken. And I found out that my family had done this to me. And of course that, broke my heart. It was just, yeah, it was just, and no, I did not start writing or journaling because of the show Awkward. I had started writing and journaling, and then I found out about the show Awkward. But yeah, so that's just something that I've had going on in my life. But it's more insidious than just that. The Jenna thing happened and it was awful. But my abuse goes a little bit further than that. And if you're on this channel, you know about gang stalking, harassment, narcissistic abuse, and things like that, because that's a lot. That is the highest, form of boundary bullying, and it is the highest form of psychological manipulation and abuse. And it's not okay. It's like they literally go through illegal means of fucking with you. And so what started out as people, well, first of all, it started out as me being surveyed, under surveillance and things like that. I just didn't know how much of surveillance I was under. I knew that when I was in Peru, some weird shit was going on. And I remember my phone being stolen, like literally, like almost as if jacked, like by a professional jacker, because I had it in a pocket, and all of a sudden it wasn't there, and I never found it again. And the same thing happened to me, but point is, I've been dealing with this, and I believe it started in Peru. Like my family sending me to Peru was kind of like an excuse, or like some type of it was like the beginning of whatever plot that they had enacted or were beginning to start for assassinating me and my character, and for I don't know, for trying to, I don't even know what they're trying to do. I really don't know what once again, and I don't really care why or what the reason is behind what they've been trying to do. But at the end of the day, while I was in Peru, that's when the psychological manipulation and abuse and stuff started happening. I would write something, but basically before all this happened, I would write things, and my writings never, ever, ever, ever influenced my life or my reality. And this is the thing about gang stalking. This is the thing about harassment. This is the thing about gaslighting that's just so ridiculous. Honestly, I don't even know how people get gaslit half the time, because you would have to just honestly not be connected to yourself in order for that shit to be successful. But for me, gaslighting never really worked, because I'm not about the bullshit myself. And I have a very clear grasp of reality. And this is another thing I want to get into with the gang stalking community. And I know that this is a really big faux pas to say in this community, but I feel like quite a few of you guys actually have serious mental issues. As someone who grew up, and I didn't have issues with anxiety before this started happening. I never had hallucinations. I've never been someone to see things or hear colors and see sounds. Like none of that shit was ever. I was just a regular fucking kid. That's all I was, But after exploring and looking at this community a bit more, I've just come to realize that there are people in society who like to prey on those they perceive as mentally ill. There are people that like to sit there and prey on those they perceive as filled with resentment or mentally ill or all these other things. In my journals, because I was a young girl, I was exaggerating a lot. I said in a previous video how I like to exaggerate things a lot, because it just made reading it more interesting when I would read back. But when I was in high school, I would do this thing where I would do people's homework for money. Yeah, I was like the school's black market. I had like hall passes in my jacket, and I was trying to sell. I would do kids' homework for money. I would try to, I was just doing a whole bunch of whatever I could to make money, man. I was a hustler. I was a hustler. But yeah, so but a lot of the times the homework would be things like essays. Like no one ever wanted to write their essays. And oh my gosh, do you know how hard it is to write 5 papers on the same topic from 5 different perspectives? or from the same perspective, but with two different voices and different enough to where, like, I had a whole system going down. I needed your previous essays that you've written. I needed to see just I had to analyze. I had this whole system. I would get their previous work. I would analyze how their writing style is, and I would mimic their voices in their papers, but make it just slightly better. Anyways, thankfully I never got caught, but I'm pretty sure the teachers probably knew something. Adults always know something is going on. They just never say anything because they don't really care. But yeah, I did that all through high school. For like 3 years. I got so good at writing. I got good at it. But unfortunately, I haven't been writing that much these past 2 years. And after all the abuse, it kind of just limits your desire to develop yourself in any way, because you're so focused on healing and licking your wounds. But yeah, so doing that is extremely difficult. But something that I've realized in school was that if I slept on something, no matter what, I would always wake up with greater clarity. And one time I was going to sleep while writing an essay while thinking about writing an essay, and I was just so lost. Like, I had no idea what to write about, but I had to write this dude's paper. So I'm sleeping and I'm thinking, and then I have a dream. And in the dream, there's this teacher person who's literally telling me word for word what to write. And I'm like, okay. So I start writing it down. I'm at a desk and I'm writing it down. But when I look at the teacher and I look down at my paper, what I'm writing is so garbled. Like, I can't see what I'm writing. It keeps changing or something. It doesn't make sense to me. And I tell the teacher, I'm like, look, I'm looking at the paper, but I can't keep the words there. It's not staying. And she's like, it's okay. It's okay. We're just going to say it over and over again until you memorize it. And then when you wake up, you can just write it. And I was like, okay. And we went over that paper line for line, memorizing the lines in my dream. This is all a dream. Memorizing the lines. And then when I woke up, I wrote the paper. I just wrote it. And yeah, I just did it that way. And after that experience, I was like, holy shit. Imagine if I could hone this skill. Imagine if I could always study in my sleep and when I'm awake, I'm just gathering information. And when I'm asleep, I'm applying that information. Like, imagine. So that spurred my interest in consciousness. And I began doing these experiments. I just began researching and doing so much research. And I was looking into things like lucid dreaming. And I found this one website that was super amazing for lucid dreaming and things like that. It took a very scientific approach. And I really appreciated that, because I needed something that I could something that had steps that I could follow that were not some, like, I was just so at this age. I was in my cringy intellectual atheist stage, where you feel like, if it's not science and peer reviewed, I cannot look at it. Now I'm beyond that. But as a teenager, I was really cringy as fuck. And I was I was just feeling like anything not peer reviewed was beneath me. But so yeah, I'm doing all this research and stuff like that, and I'm writing about I'm writing about my dreams that I'm having. I'm writing about my experiments with consciousness that I'm having, all that other stuff. None of it is anything that would have, like, I was never into horoscopes. I was never into, there was a time when I was like 12 or 13, because that was my first introduction to it or whatever. But I thought I was the wrong sign for years. And then when I realized that this thing that I thought was so accurate, was actually wrong, because all this time I was reading the information for the wrong sign. I was just like, well, that kind of proves that this is all bullshit. So yeah, like 12 or 13, I stopped giving a fuck about horoscopes. In my life, my biggest influences, if you want to consider them, in terms of religion, it has been Catholicism, and in terms of philosophy, it has been Buddhism. I've never done anything in my life more than because something that my family tries to do is that they try to sit there and pretend like what's happening to me is some type of spiritual thing that I'm bringing into the world through my writing. And it's like, bitch, I've never done a seance. I've never done any type of, I've never prayed to the devil. Like, I've literally never done anything but just do my prayers or meditate. These are the only things that I've ever done in my life. There's nothing demonic or evil that I've ever dabbled with. Anything that would be considered those things, I've never dabbled in it ever in my life, ever. Like, literally ever. And the reason they were saying that is because, once again, my harassers are these people who are like literally stalking my every word and everything I write. Like, once again, they just don't understand writing. They just don't understand how it is that someone can exaggerate something in order to tell a story. Like, for instance, in one of my essays that I had written recently for college, I was writing about my journey into, a portion of it was about my journey into atheism. And I was talking about how I had exchanged crystals with the spiritualists and tarot cards with the, it was just for effect though. There were things that I had written for just the effect, the just so it can flow with the, it's kind of like poetry. You know how you'll say you fought the beast that was your homework, for a dramatic effect. But you're really just trying to say you studied really hard and completed assignments. For me, talking about my brief, stint with astrology was for me to say things like I exchanged crystals with the spiritualist and I did this and that. It was just for effect. But yeah, this is what, but when you have people trying to pretend to be God or pretend to be the universe or pretend to be karma, all they have to go off of is what you've written. All they have to go off of is physical evidence. And I quote unquote evidence. So they don't really have any actual, when you're dealing with people that are pretending to be God, all they have is what they see. And the thing about God is God can see beyond that. God is omniscient. God can read your heart, they say. But these human beings, they can't read your heart. They can't read your mind. They can't do any of that. So whenever I hear some of you guys in this community talking about mind reading stuff and, dealing with the invisible forces and all the other things like that, I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying that that hasn't necessarily been a part of my abuse yet, at least, knock on wood. But yeah, these people are just regular ass fucking people. They can't, they're just basically, they honestly think that I don't believe that I'm living in a situation where someone is reading my journals whenever I leave. Or they honestly think that I don't believe that, my uncles and aunties, when I was staying with them, weren't reading my journals and then getting their network and people in their network to try and to say what's in my right. Like, they honestly think that I believe they're trying to make me think that I've gone crazy or some shit, and to return to Christianity because whatever you're doing is evil and demonic and your writing is bringing forth all these. They honestly want me to believe that bullshit. And here's the thing. And this is the thing that, your harassers don't get, or they do get, but they just don't care about. You have been you for your entire life. So you're going to know how the world treats you. Luckily, once again, 20 was really young when this started, but it wasn't too young. It was young enough in that, I was I just had so much learning and growing to do in life before I could be prepared to handle something like this. Honestly, I don't think anything in life can really prepare you to handle this, but at the end of the day, 20 was way too young for old heads to feel, like they can put me through this. But at the end of the day, where I'm going with this is, but I was old enough to have lived life long enough to know how the world views me and how the world treats me. So when my life did a whole 180 overnight, and all of a sudden I was being treated just a completely night and day different way from how I usually got treated in life, I was able to, I just was able to see the differences. Once again, I've always had high emotional intelligence. I've always just been very well-rounded. I'm book smart, I'm street smart, I'm people smart. I'm all of that. I literally am. Now, because of the I've never had issues with anxiety, never in my life until this started happening. I've just never had any issues. None. Seriously, not even from my childhood. Like, don't get me wrong. Everyone has trauma issues with their childhood and things like that, and some of us more than others. And I don't think my upbringing was normal. But at the end of the day, even though I would write about those things that were happening, it was never overwhelming. My childhood was never overwhelming to me. And to this day, it still isn't. The thing that has been overwhelming and the thing that has been troubling for me hasn't been my childhood. It's been what's been happening to me these past few years. Now, my abusers, and here's the thing, and this is another I remember I joined the crappy childhood fairy. I'm pretty sure you guys know of her. I joined one of her groups. Now, the reason I joined her group isn't because of my childhood issues. I joined the crappy childhood fairy group because I was dealing with CPTSD, not from my childhood, but from the gang stalking and harassment that I had been going through from these narcissistic psychopaths that are trying to control, my life or our lives. So that's when the anxiety started springing forth. I've never in my life ever had issues with being focused. I've never in my life had issues with academic performance. I've never in my life had issues with any of the things I'm having issues with now, until because of the fact that I'm going through what I'm going through. I've never been antisocial. I've never been, of course, I'm introverted, but being introverted isn't the same as being antisocial. It just means, when I'm socializing, I get drained. And when I'm not socializing, that's when I recuperate my energy. Like, that's just me. Socializing will always be a drain on me. But it doesn't mean that I'm bad at it. It doesn't mean that I can't do it. No, I'm very, none of these things are an issue for me. Another thing that goes back to what I was talking about in my previous videos about the whole what's what I'm looking for? About them thinking that I have these issues with self-esteem and stuff. Like, I've never had issues with self-esteem ever. I'm sorry. I know how awesome I am. I know how amazing I am. I'm very well aware of those things. I don't need someone to show me how amazing I am. Don't get me wrong, we all need that outside support and things like that. But a very long time ago, and this is the reason I'm thankful for my religious upbringing, despite the fact that I'm not, religious anymore. But I learned a long time ago where to put my sense of self-worth and where to put my identity. And it is not my identity and my sense of self-worth. They're not in anything I do, for like work or anything like that. They're not in people. They're not in any of these places. They're in a reserved place that I keep, locked away in my chest somewhere. So none of that, nothing in life is ever going to make me feel like I'm just not a great person, because I know I am. There's nothing. I'm just like everyone else. I don't view myself as more bad than everyone. I don't view there's, once again, when it comes to that whole theme of your abuse, for some reason my abusers think that I'm filled with shame. For some reason they think that I judge myself harshly. For some reason they think that I have so much anxiety surrounding who I am and all my identity. They think that I don't have an identity. They think and once again, this is all based on shit that I wrote as a teenager. When you're figuring out who you are, when you're figuring all that shit out for yourself. But once again, it just goes back to the whole social media kind of just destroying people's perceptions of reality. And not only that, but you also have people who, I sit there and I look at my life and I look at how, when I look back on the things that I did, that was actually pretty, I wasn't an average kid. I was an average kid doing not so average things. The average kid isn't trying to start a business in high school. The average kid isn't, trying to, figuring out ways to get rich. The average kid just isn't doing that. The average kid, they weren't like me. And what that does is it automatically puts me in a minority. And what I'm dealing with are people who are in the majority. And when you're in a minority, You can call it what it is. You can call me what you want to after I say this, but at the end of the day, I'm just dealing with people that were the average kids. I'm dealing with the people who were the who cared more about being popular than they did about you know this, that, and the third. They cared more about uh, looking cool to all the other kids. They cared more about all this other shit instead of what I was caring about, which is just fine. It's just fine. It's just we're different. Um, and we're different in that your behavior and your ideas and your way of thinking and doing things is more commonplace than mine was. But the issue here is that despite the fact that I can respect them for being average and doing what the majority of the crowd is doing, they can't respect me for being different or not doing what majority of the crowd is doing, or for not wanting what majority of the crowd wants. And that's where that issue comes in. And once again, these people, I sit there and I say not doing what majority of the crowd wants and things like that. But at the end of the day, my thoughts and feelings that I was writing and stuff like that, that was all very relatable to them, especially as they got older. But it's just basically there are some people who they stop developing, their personality stopped developing in high school. And so for them, someone who has changed since they were in high school is being different or being fake. Like I literally had a conversation with someone who was like, and it was so ridiculous. He was one of my harassers, or a guy that was trying to be my harassers. But I just blocked him because he was just being stupid. But he was having this conversation with me, and he was like, sometimes you had an opinion and then you just changed it, and I'm just like, when you came across new information or whatever. Basically, once again, and this could be a whole video in and of itself, but I really wanted to talk about the segment of just the stupidity. Like at the end of the day, like I just recognize that I'm dealing with a bunch of stupid people. And I hate to say that, but it is what it is. I'm dealing with people that are just less intelligent, less curious, just stupid. Um, this guy was talking to me and he was saying things like, you had one opinion and then you came across some information and that changed your opinion. I'm like, nigga, what the fuck you think is supposed to happen? What do you think what do you think you're, like, people literally sit there and this happened to me with one of my professors even. They learn something and they have an opinion about that something. Then new information comes out to either contradict what they had previously learned, or not only contradict it, but just prove it as false. And there are some people who, when that happens, they go, I don't care if there's new information to contradict what I learned. Or I don't care if there's new information that says what I've learned is false. I'm going to go ahead and believe what I want to believe anyway. And they feel proud about that. And then there are those of us who recognize that when new information comes out to contradict what we previously learned, or to falsify what we learned, you just kind of, adjust. But of course, within reason. And I want to talk about what I always bring things back to the larger society, because once you get the macrocosms, copy the microcosms. So you see, as someone who did a bunch of reading, I was a voracious reader, especially on social issues and things like that, but on other topics too. But something I started getting into was the topic of social issues and things like that. And so, but you realize that there are large groups of people in society who they never really they don't care to read that much. They don't care to obtain information that much. Basically, the only time they come across, theory work or deep work of any kind is when it's on the front page of the internet or something. So what you have here, and it kind of relates to what you have going on right now in society with all these white men talking about, white people in general talking about virtue signaling. Basically, for the past few years, topics on racism, colorism, sexism, sexuality, they've just been people have just been bombarded with back to back. Every new month, there's like a new topic. Now, for people who have already been part of these communities, these topics are actually very old. There's nothing new about them. There's nothing novel about them. If you have more than a high school education, you kind of know very much so about these things. Nothing about it is new. But, and this is especially with white people, but with all groups of people too. But what you have here are people who have never done any type of deep learning or deep reading into just social issues or things like that. And even science or even like just different just scientific topics and things like that. And for to them it just looks like they're constantly being bombarded with new information, and everyone is just hopping on the bandwagon for that new information. And so what they see is, the TV says something, and then all these people just suddenly start following that something. They don't recognize that there's actually been an entire community formed around that topic for decades. And now the media is just now putting it to the forefront because now they have more numbers, or now after decades of doing, the work, now it's finally making the front page of something. And this is going on. And if one social issue is, doing enough to get this people's attention, let's try to get as many people who are doing work with social issues into the media. And so what you have here is, to people that have never ever been a part of that space, it looks like they're constantly it looks like the media is just constantly creating out of thin air, just pulling out of their asses all of these different isms and ideologies and sexualities and stuff like that. And it's like, no, bitch, this shit has been around for years, literally years. You're just now being exposed to it. And because the media, it's like the movies, just like how we have a ton of, one superhero movie does well, so they got to make a ton of them. The same thing with the like the anti-hero movies that are kind of big now, like the like Good Boys, that whole anti-hero thing, and now they have Invincible like on Netflix and things like that. If one thing is going to catch people's attention, if one thing is popular, the media just likes to hop on it and just completely, like, for the past 5 years we've had nothing but superhero movies back to back to back because they do well. And for the past several years, we've had nothing but back-to-back social justice issues in the forefront because they do well. But that doesn't mean that these things are new. These comic books have been around for a long time. They didn't just pull the Wasp and Bee-Man out of their ass. They didn't just create him. No, that comic book has been around for years, decades, generations. And now it's finally in a place to where it can be popularized or become popular media. And so what you have here are a bunch of idiots who have never been exposed to this information, and they're just now getting exposed to it back to back to back. And you're just like, everyone is just hopping on a bandwagon. No, bitch, you're just late to the party. Like, this is what it really is. These people are just late. They're just fucking late. And they're late because they've been late their entire life. They've been late in school. They've been late in, they've just been late their entire fucking lives. And so that conversation I was having with that guy where he was just like, your opinions are changing and things like that. I'm like, boy, that's what's supposed to happen. That's a part of growing up. That's a part of being a fucking adult. You learn new information and then you, compare it to what you previously knew, and then you adjust. But to them it looks like you're just following whatever is being said. No, there's definitely critical thinking going on here. I've been critically thinking about this for a long ass time. You just are unaware of all the years of work that I put into to come to my conclusion. To you it looks like I'm just doing this overnight. No. No. That is not what's going on here, boy, girl, people. So yeah, that's just a little branch on, once again, how social media and just how the media in general has people believing reality is one thing when it's really another. And I always bring up this topic because I think it's really easy. It's just an easy topic for people to get. Take, for instance, colorism. There are people who honestly believe that being anti-colorist or not judging people on their appearance based on their skin tone, they think that because on the internet that's a faux pas, that somehow translates to reality. There are people who honestly think that there are more anti-colorist people than there are colorist people, and that is not the case. No, in reality, it's the norm, it's popular to be colorist. You just accept that darker people are uglier and lighter people are prettier. That's the norm in reality. That is what is the norm in this society. The other way around is not the norm, which is the reason why there are communities formed around anti-colorism. And they sit there and they think that just because it's a big thing on the internet, that translates to it being a big thing in reality. And so they're sitting there aggravated at the fact that you would dare, like, stop trying to virtue signal. Like, oh my God. And that word, once again, virtue signaling is actually a very real thing. That is a very real word, but it's being overused and oversaturated by dummies. Like, honestly, that's at the end of the day. Like, I don't even care about pulling punches. These people are just fucking stupid. And for the past few years, I've had to deal with being, harassed and bombarded by stupid people. And because at the end of the day, that's just what it is. Stupid people that can't keep up. And this just all is what it's part of what's tying into, once again, the type of abuse that you that you receive. Like I said before, my example with Saw, we're all facing the same type of abuse, but there's just different challenges in those abuses. And what I'm dealing with is people that are thinking that I'm inauthentic, or people that are thinking that I have anxiety issues, or thinking that I've had all these weird issues all my life that they're just manipulating or playing up. And it's like, no, as someone who has been a normal, regular, well-liked, popular, like, cool girl all my entire life, I know when things are like, I can pinpoint specifically and precisely when something went wrong or changed in my life, because I know what life I was living before the one I'm living now. And this is the reason why the gaslighting can never work on me, because they don't have an accurate, they think they do, but they actually don't have an accurate they just don't have anything accurate to go off of for the beginning of my life. They don't have any accurate records to reference in order to successfully trap me in their infinite Tsukiyomi, their little genjutsu, their little to get nerdy. Like, they don't have the they just don't have the ability to do that. But yeah, that's just part of what comes with the territory of being harassed by people with just the losers, the idiots, the dummies in society. Like, this is honestly what it comes down to. Like, I always talked about before about how, or I don't know if I talk about it on here, but I was talking especially in one of my journals, about how you think high school ends once you leave high school. But in reality, you get out here in the real world and you're just kind of like back in high school. You're like, it's honestly, that's what it feels like. Like, I'm literally dealing with people that are in adult bodies, but they have the maturity and the intellectual maturity and the intellectual curiosity of actually less than, because children are very curious, intellectually curious, but these people have, just all the negative aspects of being a child and none of the positives. And that's really unfortunate. And for us who are on this, who are on the receiving end of this abuse, the real or misfortune is on us. But then again, it's like I said before. It's like I said before. There's just, as much pain as they might be putting you through, you've got to understand it has to be worse to be them. Like, I sit there and I think to myself about my sisters and about how they're putting me through all this. They're just how willingly they are to side with the public and, harassing me and putting me through different forms of psychological manipulation and abuse. Just how eager they are to do that. Like, I've literally cried on the phone with my sister about the things that are happening, and she's laughing. I've literally cried on the phone with my sister about how this is impacting me, and they literally don't give a fuck. Um, and once again, it just has to do with that is like a trifold. That is a trifold issue, because part of it has to do with the fact that, once again, my sisters are people who have settled in life or have been hit in life, with the ugly stick, not the ugly stick, but the unfair stick really hard. Or just the bullshit in life really really hard. And a lot of it has to do with and honestly, a lot of it has to do with them and things like that, like their own lack of discernment. And me, despite the fact that I'm the youngest, I've had a lot of discernment. And that has helped me to live a life that's just once again a life where I was favored, where I am favored. Because and that's what the jealousy comes in at. I don't have a jealous bone in my body. I've all my life had a very abundant mindset. And what I mean by that is, I've never in my life have I ever looked at someone with something and thought to myself, how does she get that? She doesn't deserve it. I want it, I want it, I want it, and I want her to not have it. No. If I've ever seen someone with something that I want, I go, interesting. I wonder how they got that. If they have it, I'm pretty sure that I can have it too. Let me just see what they did and do what they did. Like, that's just how, it's just that simple to me. And if I can't get it, I'm like, oh, okay, well then never mind. I'll go find something else to do. Like, I'm a very adaptable mind. I don't have strong attachments to much. And once again, that has to do with the whole philosophy of Buddhism having an impact on me, and also Stoicism. I always say this: Stoicism, Buddhism, and Epicureanism. Those things that just have had really they've just kind of found, they're kind of like formate my core, my core identity and things like that. I'm very detached from outcomes. I'm very, what's comes to me, what doesn't. I don't really, don't get me wrong. There are times when I hype myself up, because, you need to, when you're going after something, you kind of need to have the drive to, if you're just constantly laissez-faire about everything, then you'll get nowhere. You have to have some type of drive about something. So I'll hype myself up about certain things. But at the end of the day, there's nothing in this world that I'm so attached to that if I don't have it, it will cause me psychological distress or harm. Like, I don't care at the end of the day. Like, at the end, it's just never that serious. It's just never that serious. And there's just 1,000,001 pathways to take in life. There's just so many. I have so many interests that when one interest doesn't work out, it's like, okay, let's go to that next interest. Like, there's just way too many possibilities in this life. And one of the saddest things about this life is that I can't, it just sucks that I can't explore them all. So when one door closes, it's like, okay, it's like giving me an opportunity. Honestly, it's like an opportunity to, go down another pathway. But what's unfortunate, what I don't like, is the fact that before, life was just being life. Now I have people in my life, and if you're a victim of gangstalking harassment, you already know what I'm about to say. Now you have someone trying to be life. They're trying to be the God. They're trying to be this force in the world. They're trying to pretend like they're trying to just manipulate your life. They and like I said, my harassment wasn't just strictly to my journals. Once these people found out about me, they needed to have access to everything about me. They needed to have access to my text messages, to my emails. Once again, I was being watched in a window while I was in Peru. And these guys, they sit there and caught me fucking masturbating or whatever. And they literally, after that, I've had all these strange men trying to come after me, and not come after me like it is in a predatory state, in a predatory way, to be honest. But yeah, it's just been gross. It's just been, things have just been, life has just been gross. And they all try to sit there and masquerade their disgusting behavior behind, girl, we all do it. What are you talking about? Or, girl, we just think you're cute. Like, why are you so offended by the fact that we want to be with you? Why are you so offended by? And it's like, it's not about the fact that you want to be with me. It's not about the fact that you can relate to me or that you're trying to relate to me. It's about the means. It's about the medium through which you're doing what you're doing. And it's about the fact that you just won't admit. Like, if someone just admitted to me, like, hey, you're that girl from the window, like, and just said it like that, that's one thing. But the reason they don't want to admit the reason that they have all these intimate details about me or why it is they're approaching me is because even they know. And this is the thing about the gaslighting. They'll sit there and try to make you feel some type of way about being upset or feeling violated and things like that. About how it is they got the information, but they refuse to say, like, if watching me from a window and then feeling motivated to approach me isn't creepy, then why don't you just say it? Why don't you just say that that's how you saw me or that's how you met me? Why are you keeping that a secret? You're keeping that a secret because even you know how fucking creepy that sounds. Even you know how much of a creep you are. If you can relate to me because of my journals and things like that, why don't you just say, hey, you're the girl from the journals, like, you wrote about this and that, and I want to let you know, like, I can relate to what you've been going through. You're not strange, you're not different, like, I feel you. You want to know why people refuse to do that? Because it's fucking creepy. Because it's fucking weird. Because they know damn well that they're committing a social faux pas. They know damn well that their behavior is unsavory. They know damn well that their behavior is disgusting and deplorable. They know it. They know it. And they're the ones feeling shame. They're the ones feeling weird. They're the ones feeling all these different feelings. And this is the reason why they're projecting it onto you. And this is the reason why they've been projecting it onto me. They recognize that what they've done is disgusting. And they sit there and try to hide it behind things like, I've had the same thoughts. Me just saying this is just me expressing my thoughts to you. And just because we have the same thoughts, it doesn't mean that, no. People have the same thoughts all the time, but you specifically coming to me and specifically expressing those specific things is because of the fact that, it's because you want to send me a message. You want to relate to me. It's because of the journals. Let's just be honest here. I've lived my life, my entire life. Like, I know how the world relates to me, and you coming up to me upon first meeting and having X, Y, and Z conversation, or talking to me about X, Y, and Z. Like, I know that, like, it's just weird how people just refuse to. They want you to be okay with it, but they're not okay with it. Like, they know what they're doing, and this is the reason why I say this every video, and I'm going to say it now. Nothing about what you're going through is about you. It's about them. It's 100% about them. It's their shortcomings. It's their weaknesses. It's their plight. It's all them. And it's their immaturity. And once again, it also just has to do with the fact that, you're just around a bunch of morons. Unfortunately, in this life, if you are exceptional in any way, that puts you in an even greater minority, And it's just yeah, you really have to you just have to recognize the fact that, especially if you're, and this is really unfortunate, but especially in the Black community or in minority communities in general, everyone talks about the Oreos, everyone talks about the, educated lanes. We all have our stories of being the constantly, what's the word, told you're acting white or told you this or that for having certain levels of just not being ghetto, If you're not ghetto, if you're not a hard bitch, if you're not this, that, or the third, people sit there and they think that you're a sellout. They think that you're trying to be white. They think that you're, this, that, and the third. And it's like, broski, it ain't even that. It's not even that deep, dude. You're just, you're ghetto. You're ignorant. You're stupid. And I'm not. And hey, look, dude. Being ghetto, ignorant, and stupid, those things have negative connotations. They really do. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, it's okay. Like, I don't hate you I don't view you as any less of a person just because you're ghetto, ignorant, and stupid. Now, I view you as less of a person because you're trying to weaponize your ghetto-ness and your ignorance and your stupidity in order to fuck with me in my life. That's not cool. But you being dumber, you being more ghetto, you being more ignorant, you lacking discernment, Like that's just who you are. That's just you. You know, and who am I to judge you? Like that's just who you are. Um but um but yeah, it's just all related to the gang stalking and things like that. But just to get back to the topic at hand about how social media once again has just kind of it's just altered people's perceptions of proper behavior and proper boundaries and things like that. People seriously think that it's okay to make an icon out of someone, even someone that's made it very clear that they don't want to be, or that they don't, or that they want privacy. Like it's astounding to me how you know how people are just not willing to respect someone's privacy, to seriously feel entitled to seriously feel entitled to someone's life, to seriously feel entitled to someone's to everything about them, all these details about them. Like it's just gross to me the amount of people that have, and not only that, because honestly, and I've said this before in my journals, but to say it here publicly, to be honest, I have absolutely no. I don't give a fuck about what some random strangers have to say. I don't give a fuck about what some random strangers are doing. The most painful aspect of this entire thing is recognizing the role that my family played in this. Like, that is honestly that is the crux of my dilemma. That is the crux of my pain. Knowing that my own sisters, my own brothers, my own mother, my own aunties, knowing that my elders, because they're all older than me, knowing that my elders have been trying to punch down at me and control me and, psychologically manipulate me and put me through psychological distress and things like that, just so that they can, just for their own purposes. Like, that's just so fucking sick to me. Like, it's seriously sick to me, because it's one thing for the world out there to do some shit to you. But then for your own internal world, for your family, your immediate, this world ain't shit. And having family is just one of those, and family is just extremely important, especially in a world as hyper individualistic and as in a society where community is just collapsing everywhere. Like the fact that family is just really important. And when you have a shitty family, that is like the biggest life setback, or the biggest, like it sucks. Like it really fucking sucks. Um and yeah, if you're a victim of gang stalking and your family is a part of it, like it's unfortunate how you're just in a really shitty situation. Like those victims of gang stalking that can at least go back to their mother, that can at least go back to their siblings or their fathers, like at least you have that. But I literally have nobody, no one. And it's sad. It's very saddening. It's one of those things where you just realize it and it just hits you like a ton of bricks throughout the day. But that was the whole purpose, and once again, it goes back to that whole jealousy, things like that, like my sisters, like they're jealous of the fact that I'm favored. They're jealous of the fact that I have a discerning spirit. And then I want to talk about the topic of, I've already talked about it before in my video on gang stalkers don't want you to be a critical thinker. But another thing that comes into play is the whole aspect of them thinking that I'm judgmental just because I have opinions about their lives, or just because I have opinions, once again, opinions that I'm not even expressing to them in person. But just because, I sit there and I analyze situations that people have put me in, or I've been analyzing what people have been doing to me, and it's been showing them the way that, I perceive them, or how I perceive their interaction. And it's just really interesting to me watching people become offended at the way that I process my emotions or my feelings. In my previous video, I talked about how, because I was denied the ability to feel negative emotions as a young adult, especially as a moody ass teenager, I took to journaling as a way for me to vent. And I think it's really disgusting that the people in my life took my personal venting method and weaponized that against me. And not only did they weaponize it against me, but they've been trying to make me think that the universe is trying to punish me for having a journal where I vent. Like, it's just sick. It's sadistic. It's sick as fuck. And it's just sickening. It's really, really sickening. And I've just been seeing this really nasty side of society and of people. And it's just, I can see the demons in them. I can see the narcissistic, the hateful, the vengeful, the jealous. Like, it's just the bestial nature of them. Like, it's just like all these people look like sharks out for blood. Like, these people are disgusting. I've healed tremendously since this whole thing began. Like I said, knowledge is information. I mean, information, well, knowledge is power. And it's a power that can shield you. And the more knowledgeable that I grow about what's been happening to me and all these other different things, and the more insights I have, the less power these people have. Like, I sit there and talk about this shit, but at the end of the day, like, I go about my day. There's still a lot of healing that I need to do and things like that. But, I have my good weeks and my bad weeks, but majority of the time things are good. It's just gross. It's just gross realizing that you have to deal with fucking idiots. It's just gross realizing just how majority of this world is really full of sick people. And I just want to, I guess I can end it off on that one George Carlin quote. George Carlin, he's in one of his little comedy specials. He was talking. He was like, what is it? That one statistic. Oh, let me get a quote for it specifically. I want to make sure that I say it right. He was talking about how stupid people. And when you do these statistics, you got to think about how, his quote is like, think of how stupid the average person is and realize half of them are stupider than that. So there's literally half of our population is stupider than the average person. And, half of our, I'm sorry, but it's just that quote. It just makes me realize, like, literally, this is the world I live in. There's the average level of intelligence, and then there's all the people that fall below that average. And there's a large population of people that fall below that average. And it's like you have to deal with them. You have to, they're, oh Lord, and don't let them be put in a position of authority over you. Like, it's literally just dealing with just stupid people. Another thing I guess I just want to put into this video, even though it should be a video in and of itself, is what's going on in the world right now with the whole pandemic and all these different issues that are on the TV and stuff like that. Like, I'm just going to use my current manager, for example. I have this manager, and and of course he knows about me. Of course he knows of me. Of course he tries to sit there and do these weak ass line drops or weak ass subliminal statements and things like that. Because he's an old ass person who doesn't have a life anymore, and his life revolves around, once again, he's kind of in a routine of his own. Like, he's just an old ass person looking for any way to feel powerful, and his way of feeling power is once again punching down on the youth or things like that, or when you become harassed or gang stalked, you become a version of, your name is clout. Interacting with you gives people clout. They get clout off of you. you are like the glue that's holding all these people that don't even like each other. These people don't even like each other, but they're all held together because they just don't like you, or because they want to fuck with you. So yeah, of course he's gonna sit there and try to clout chase by, interacting with me in stupid ways. But his interactions with me actually aren't what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is what he does, which is this thing where he'll sit there and say something, and he'll just say it, and and sometimes, like, honestly, I don't believe none of the shit that comes out of his mouth, but he just says stuff. He'll just start going off on, in potato chips, like it's the history of this is that it's this or that, or house music was invented in the, like, he just literally says well, he just says shit. Like, he just says shit. Like, one time I had a cut and, maggots were growing. Like, he literally just says dumb shit. And one time, actually very early on, I was listening to him and I was like, I'm pretty sure this isn't accurate. Or I don't know if I thought I was being sarcastic, but I don't think he caught on to it. But I was like, you're so cultured. You are just so cultured. Huh, you must have lived a very interesting. I think he couldn't catch the sarcasm in my voice, but he was going on about how such and such is house music or something like that. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure house music is like this type of EDM pop stuff. It's not R&B. It's not, like, I don't know if maybe it's because I'm just pretty sure he was inaccurate on that. House music isn't what he was saying it was. And I was just like, you're so cultured, but I thought I was saying it was sarcasm. But ever since then, he just comes back there and he just says some of the most random shit, and we just laugh about it. But I brought up that example not because I'm saying that he's, trying to manipulate us or anything like that. I bring up that example because this is what the world leaders think that they have a population of. They think that they have a population of people that they can just tell anything to, and we just believe it right off the rip. We won't question anything. And that's not true. That's not true. It's just, the problem is people are just so fucking stupid. There's just so many people that aren't doing reading. They're not doing studying. They're not doing self-development. They don't do any of that shit. They stopped reading after they stopped getting assigned books to read and shit like that. That's when they stopped reading. After they stopped getting assigned paperwork, that's when they stopped, studying. They don't like it. It's just they don't care. They don't care to develop themselves or their minds in any way, shape, or form. And then they get a part of the larger world, and online or on the TV, people are talking about these complex issues, or these complex social issues and things like that, and they're lost. And they don't get what's going on or why this is even a topic of conversation. And it's like, bitch, you're lost. No one's stupid. No one's following shit just because they're being told it. No one's virtue signaling. You're just lost. Like, just accept it and they refuse to accept the fact that they're just lost. Like, they really refuse to just accept that fact. And that's because you got to think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that. In other words, they're lost, and a whole bunch of other people are lost too. And so it looks like, well, if I'm lost and everyone else is lost, then you must be the idiot. You must be the virtue signaler. You're just trying to be this. You're just following whatever people tell you to. And it's like, no, actually, that's you. You're the one who's lost. You're the one who's just following the crowd. You're the one whose whole identity was crafted in high school and hasn't developed since then. That's you. But they just, they can't see it. They can't see it. And honestly, it's sad. It's pitiful. Yeah, it's just sad. And it's for these reasons that sometimes I just have these complex feelings about, about what's going on in society. Like, man, like, some of y'all really do just need to. It just makes me realize why it is that there's so many predators at the top, and it's because down here,
y'all, it's like y'all really are just fucking dumb. Like people really are just easy fucking prey. Um, y'all have no ethics, no morals. You don't respect boundaries at all. Y'all don't do anything for development. Y'all seriously think that you have the tenure to sit there and diagnose someone that you don't even know with certain issues, and then y'all sit there and think that the craziest thing about it is people like us who are targeted individuals who know that what's going on, these people seriously try to make it seem like you're crazy as if you really aren't getting what's going on. Like the fact that people are literally out here thinking that, getting mad that you recognize what's happening. Like they're more upset that you recognize their bullshit than they're upset that they're putting you through the bullshit. And it's just like, it's just the stupidest thing ever. Like it's just all stupidity on all sides at all angles. Like it's just sad. But yeah, that's where I'm gonna end things off.